Hey guys, this is Alex from Cornerstone Contractors and Property Management. This is the deck on my wife and I's personal home. What we've had to do is a bunch of repairs, replacing decking, but we've had to do this on a tight budget. When replacing deck boards, new deck boards with old, next to old deck boards, it looks like trash. So normally what we do is we'd go over with a full body stain or a full body paint, and you'd stain or paint the deck all one color. You wouldn't see the new boards. You'd have to let those age for 6 months, and then you'd be able to stain the whole deck. In this particular case, my wife and I's porch didn't really have another 6 months and some of the boards to be getting weathered. They really needed to be treated. Plus, I don't really like the look of full body paint on deck or wanted to go over it with a full body stain. So I asked myself, how can we go over this with a semi-transparent stain, and how can we incorporate these repairs in a way that looks like it was part of the original design and not just crappy patch jobs? So this is what my wife and I came up with. First, we had to remove and replace all the completely compromised boards, the ones that were too weather damaged to be refurbished or brought back to life. We would put the boards aside that were salvageable, or ones that had salvageable pieces, so that we could pull the nails and then reuse the boards in certain spots. What you see here is me pulling the boards away from the deck connecting to the house. This is usually where most water damage occurs on decks, and I usually put a metal grate. That is not in the budget this year. We'll put that in the spring. During this process, we reclaimed a bunch of lumber, and then we played musical boards. We'd take the lumber up, we'd pull the nails, sand it if needed, and then trim it and replace it in an area where it looked like it fit better with the design that we had going. Now, as you can imagine, this is a little bit more labor intensive than just stripping off all the deck boards, railings, and replacing all the decking, railing, and spindles, than giving the whole deck a facelift. However, replacing all the lumber on this deck would have cost anywhere between $5,000 and $7,000. What you see here is not deck related, but seeing how I'm already ripping out all the rot, I figured I might as well just start, taking out the bottom course of shiplap and then properly flashing that for the new shiplap to go in. Now this is where I start to go back and forth with the process a bit, critiquing it. Where does this board fit? Where does it look better? Swap it back out with another spot. Anything I could do to try to make the pattern look a little bit more decent. What's interesting about this concept is some of the lumber that we have refurbished or salvaged from not only this deck but the one below it, we have stacked aside for the following seasons and years to come with new lumber that is also aging, so that we can keep this same design going. So that was the idea. We developed the design. Okay, if we turn this into a design rather than just replacing one or two boards, it looks more like it was designed to be multicolored deck. Then what we can do is the boards that are really old, we can just cut those out and replace them with either some of the more aged ones or a brand new board, whatever's going to look better in that spot. Next season the deck will be a totally different tone than it will be this season, so we'll have to make that assessment as to which boards go where. But that's the plan moving forward. This next part of the process is washing the decking boards with a product called Revive. After washing the old and new decking boards with Revive, you can then apply any transparent or full body stain or paint. Overall, I'm really happy with the product. The application was extremely easy, and you didn't have to be real aggressive. I did pull out the deck brush just because I wanted to add a little extra elbow grease, but it's not necessary. You can just spray the Revive on, wait 15 minutes, and then hose it off. Thanks to a few great weekends in a row, my wife and I were able to keep the momentum going forward and continue staining the deck. The product we're using is called Super Deck, and what we're doing is we're staining the top rail cedar tone. All of the framing or framework is redwood, and then all the spindles is something called charwood. This also was a pretty labor-intensive process, being tri-colored on the deck, as we had to tape off all the decking, not to get any of the stain on the decking. Everything had to be dropped below, on the deck below, plus the above deck where my wife was working. So that way, you know, if I'm working on the spindles, I'm not splashing it through onto the decking. This really has been quite a process, and it's been quite fun doing it. From the get-go, my wife and I weren't quite sure it was going to work out, and after stopping at the paint stores and talking with people and not really getting any insight as to whether or not tricolors has even been done before, we were a little bit nervous. But with this being our own house, we said, what the heck, let's try it out. Let's try and, you know, repair the deck and make it look as good as possible. If not, then next year we'll budget out the lumber to replace all the decking and railings. As I mentioned in the title of this video, this is a deck refurbishment on a tight budget. These decks both measure, the upper and lower ones are 12 feet by 40 feet. And then the side deck, the runner that goes along the side, is 5 feet by 30 feet. That's 1,100 square feet of decking, which when you put it in a cost calculator on Google, you'll come up with around $9,800 worth of labor for all the deep cleaning and some basic scraping and stuff. So that's not including what the lumber would cost to replace the deck. So as I said, my estimate was around $5,000 to $7,000 in lumber between all the railings, spindles, and decking, and another $9,000 to $12,000 for all the labor involved in the demolition and the repairs, and then all the installation of new decking, new spindles, new railings. After running that calculation, my wife and I were very happy to have completed this job for around $2,500. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Has this deck been restored or ruined? Let us know your thoughts.